Oh,
Okay, now we're good.
hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alliance of Independent Authors Advanced Self Publishing Salon with me, Joanna Penn, and Orna Ross. Hi, Orna.
Hi, Joanna, and hello, everyone.
Hello. Yes, we are back. It is almost the end of 2022, which is crazy. And today our topic is when to quit and what to quit and all the things we've been quitting. But we will get into that in a minute. First of all, a few updates. Orna, what's going on with ALLi?
Yeah, ALLi has had a busy month. We have just issued the member magazine, actually, which always is exciting and lots going on there for everyone to read, lots of features, and yeah, just generally prepping for 2023 and the various things that are going to be coming up then, which we'll discuss in more detail, I know, in our next salon. But yeah, end of the year is always busy, and then preparing, of course, for the busy book selling season. What about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I finally finished my pilgrimage book and got it to my editor. So that was a really big deal. It's actually been like 2 years, over 2 years since I did my first pilgrimage. Like many people, I thought one pilgrimage might change my life, but it actually took me three. So this book is I don't who knows what it's going to be, but I'm really happy that it's with my editor. So that was a big deal. Also, I hilariously, you're going to laugh, I've decided to do a Kickstarter this time next year. After deciding I would never do one, I think what happened really was the sort of I couldn't do a Kickstarter at the same time as a Shopify store, at the same time as other things. But I feel like this is a good chance, especially with a book that is really difficult to categorize and kind of sits across so many genres. And it's a chance for me to do a limited edition hardback, which will only be available. They'll be numbered. I'm going to do like a special print edition, which you've done before. I've never done. So I'm going to take a chance to do some new things in 2023, which I guess also we'll talk about next time. But so kind of, yeah, decisions about how to publish these more, when I say special, I mean they just don't fit in a particular box. And also there's a lot of personal meaning with this book. So yeah, that's I've been finishing that like a mad thing. So happy with that. And so what about you as Orna Ross?
Yeah, I think that's great, by the way, and I think this is a great book to do your Kickstarter with because it's so personal as well. And I think they're the projects that seem to do best. Yeah, me again, a busy month on the publishing side. I have been again moving along on the creator economy kind of thing. I'm taking all my reader patrons over onto the website directly. So that's loads of kind of management stuff in the background. I have been producing special edition poetry books for the season that's in it, and also then going to launch another poetry book for Valentine's Day next year. So that all had to be set up now because, with a big holiday in the middle kind of thing. And November is the month now that we update the ALLi guides and planners for 2023. So yeah, lots of management stuff going on. So back to fiction on the 1st of December.
Yay. Yeah, it's funny. I feel I just before this, I was working on a story. And it's so funny when you finish a sort of non-fiction project or too much admin, like, admin stuff. And then it's like, I really need to just write a story. And there's this story that's been noodling around in my head for ages. And I think for me, the fiction side is that I have so many projects that I want to do. And until I actually commit to one, I can't seem to actually start. Or, it's just all milling around and then I have to pick one. And I'm pretty sure I've picked one. And it will be a standalone, which is totally not what I normally do. It's kind of horror / dark fantasy. And it just feels good to be thinking about things that are not so serious.
Absolutely. And that's the great thing about being a multi-genre author. I think, it has its downsides,
Oh,
especially on the practical
goodness.
front, but the variety it keeps you never, it's always so interesting. And as soon as you're kind of bored or tired with something, you can flip over into the other things. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Fun times. Right, let's get into the topic for today, which is we're doing when to quit. And I'm going to put this into sort of context. So basically, my friend Jay Thorne, who many people will know, author, podcaster extraordinaire, Jay Thorne recommended this book to me. So it's called Quit: The Power of Knowing When to Walk Away by Annie Duke. And Jay recommended it to me. I recommended it to you. I've recommended it to Sasha Black, who's also talked about on her podcast now. It's going around at the moment, this book. And what is so brilliant about it, and what we want to do is reframe it as the book reframes it, which is quitting doesn't need to have this negative context. What we want is it to have a more positive context and letting go of things. And we're at that time of year when it's like, yeah, we need to let something go for a good reason. So when I recommended it to you, Orna, why did you say, yes, that sounds like a good idea?
Well, I was already in the middle of, I was thinking letting of it as letting go, because that's kind of my vernacular. But I periodically do this anyway, as sort of the clear out, So no matter how careful you are, how intentional you are, you accumulate dead wood, and also you change, you shift, or things change, tools change, the climate changes, readers change and what they want. And so you could get stuck. So it's good to do a bit of an inventory and have a look and see what's going on. So just at the moment that I was kind of doing all that, we were chatting and you said, oh, great book, Quit. And then we said, okay, that's got to be the theme for our next podcast. So,
Yeah. Well, this is it. I mean, I feel like so often we idolize grit and perseverance, and they have all these positive connotations. You'll often hear, for example, in the author industry, oh, all you need to do is stick it out. Eventually, people fall away. And if you keep going, you'll make it. If you keep submitting to agents, you'll eventually get an agent. Or if you keep writing more books, you'll eventually be successful, whatever that means. And we have all this stuff that really basically says you must keep going, whatever happens. And that is considered a good thing. Whereas the word sort of quitting can imply negativity. And Annie Duke, who's the author, she played professional poker, and she basically talked about the professionals quit more often. The most successful poker players quit more often. And we're not playing poker, but it's a game of skill. And I think that's really interesting in terms of quitting more often. Also, what I think is really important is we're not necessarily talking about quitting bad things like quitting smoking, although great, or whatever else. It's more about quitting some of the good things, because we don't necessarily pile bad things into our life. We pile good things into our life, but then we can't achieve the main kind of goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the point, particularly in creative industries, passion-based businesses. We love all the things we do, and we'd love to do more. They're always lovely, and it just keeps on expanding as well. All the lovely shiny things you can do. It's just over a decade and a half ago that none of these opportunities existed. And now with every passing year, there are more and more. So it can be really tempting. And we're not talking here about, shiny object syndrome so much as things that have become embedded. But they may be fun, and they may also be financially rewarding to some degree, but you have to check them for kind of opportunity cost. In other words, might you be better off doing something else? It's not just about what you're doing, but you might be better off quitting something that's doing okay for you because something else might serve us better. The other thing I think is that not quitting and just kind of doing the same thing can become a bit compulsive sometimes, or just we do it by rote. So we talk about creative writing and creative publishing, and the core of that is keeping things fresh and staying engaged. What we were talking about there at the beginning, the variety of switching out of nonfiction into fiction works for us in some way, but sometimes it's just about letting things go so that something new can come in.
Yeah, and you mentioned there the opportunity cost, but there are also financial costs, time costs, which kind of come into that opportunity cost. But also one really big thing that she talks about is sunk cost, and this feeling like, look, I've put this much into whatever it is, and we're going to go into some more examples in a minute, but I've put all these years in, all this money, all this effort, and it maybe if I just keep going a bit longer, it might be worth it eventually. So let's start on some of the examples. You to have mentioned it before, but that your creative nonfiction books, you put years into these. What did you quit in that sense, and how did you get over that sunk cost fallacy?
Yeah, so I've always been really interested in the process of creativity, and I wanted to do a series about creative process, and not so much about writing and publishing, but creative living and how you can apply the process that we apply to our writing and to our publishing into everything. Because I really firmly believe that this is a way to approach life, except that we're all conditioned into a different way of approaching life. So I did a long series. I commissioned all the covers. I put the covers out there, which I used to do as a kind of way to make myself do things. I didn't after this one. So I kept going for really a long time. Between, I think, 2013 and 2016, I was working on it on and off as I was doing all sorts of other things, and kept going back to it. And then one day you said to me, maybe it's time to realize it's not going, because it just wasn't coming together for me.
It was your birthday. That's what it was. A big birthday. Yeah,
it?
it was the year before your big birthday, big birthday.
Okay.
And you said, I want to finish on this particular day, and you hadn't. And that's
Yeah.
when I said to you,
Maybe
how
it's
much
time.
longer are you going to do it?
Yeah. And I went home with my tail between my legs and realized, you know what? This is best, quit. So what I did was I put the core of it, the nuggets of it, into one book, and I was satisfied with that. And I still every so often find myself drifting back over and thinking that I'd love to do that again. And I realized it became and still could be, but I won't let it be, a sort of a procrastination thing, an easier thing to do in a way than some of the other things that I want to do more. So that was the biggest thing I think that I ever quit, in terms of, because I am somebody who sticks it out. My fiction takes a very long time to put together. And even, writing a short poem for me, I can take a long time over that. And I am somebody who kind of prides myself on my grit and my resilience and my bounce back and all of that. And what I found very interesting about the Duke book was the examples she gave of people who were at the height of their game, and then were watching things falling apart. Muhammad Ali being the very well-known example, but lots of business examples as well, of people who the evidence was clear and in front of them. This is not working, but there's this mental and emotional attachment to something that you've invested lots of blood and sweat and tears into, and just letting it go becomes the hardest thing to do. And but of course, when you do let go, and when I let that series go, it was such a sense of lightness. I really felt like a great burden had been lifted off me, and I was free to do other things. I got much more serious about poetry publishing, which was much more fun and much better integrated with the busy schedule that I had in those years.
Yeah. Well, I guess before we get into all the other details, I'll just do the big one that I came to after reading the book, which was to quit my books and travel podcast.
No, you didn't tell me. Oh, wow.
Oh, didn't I? I thought I told you. Yeah. So basically, and it was almost like that book gives permission to let something go that you've kind of been feeling for a while. And so I started my books and travel podcast and the website back in early 2019. Obviously before the pandemic. I thought I was going to write this kind of move into more travel genres. But what I've learned, and I love my books and travel podcast. I may still do an occasional episode, or a solo show or something, and I'll keep the website. That's all going to be there. But doing a new episode every couple of weeks, how much work a podcast is. And then I would it would suck me in with all the awesome show notes, and I would find all the right photos, and I was doing all that because I really enjoyed it. But it was probably taking like a day and a half a week for something that ultimately has not brought me any income and has actually cost me money, costs me hosting, costs me time, all of that. And also I've discovered a lot about the traditional publishing industry around travel books. It's a very different genre. It's a lot of writing for hire, a lot of commissioned work. And so I learned about the genre. I learned about how, and I also just decided not to follow a business model that I'd set up for that website. It just wasn't going to work. So I decided to give it up. And the moment I decided, I felt so much better. Again, it's like, when this is the right decision, when you just feel like, oh, yeah, thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
And it's freed up my time. And now I feel like I can, I finished my pilgrimage book. It's almost like released me from a whole load of stuff. And all the stuff I thought I was going to do with it, I've now just let that go. As I said, it's still going to sit there, and it's all kind of evergreen because it's travel-y stuff. But yeah, so I didn't know I hadn't told you that.
No, that one escaped me. I've been very head down, I have to say. Interesting. Yeah. So, wow.
Yeah.
I'm still suffering from the latest let go that I've done though. I found it really hard, which is my personal blog. So that was the big one that came out of the book for me. I hadn't even been thinking about it. I just blog because I blog, if you know what I mean. It was a way of me kind of getting thoughts together. I've used it in all sorts of different ways over the years. It's grown with me. I have been blogging since 2008, year in, year out, and just always did. And then I just thought, you know what, I'm going to let go of the blog. And so I did, but I still find it hard. And I have things that I kind of want to express in a certain way, and I'm not quite sure how to do that as yet. But I know it's the right decision, but I'm still feeling this sort of habit energy of having it there, and it feels like a bit of a hole in all my nice things. But I know it's the right thing to do because I really have to focus my energy. Fiction writing is very different, and that's what I've realized, how much energy it takes. By not doing it for a while and by coming back to it, I realized that I just didn't have enough time, enough energy, enough creative energy.
I feel, but both of us, well, in fact, you hear this from everyone, whether you're a rapid release person or more like us, everybody does seem to need to sink into the fiction, and you have to allocate a specific amount of time. And like with nonfiction, I can be like, oh, I've got an hour, I'll write some stuff and bash out some words. But I can't do that with fiction. Like I need more time to sink into it, like you do. But let's get into some of the like some of the questions we've got for the listeners. So we'll stay with writing and books first of all, because I feel like this is what we're talking about right now. You've talked about quitting writing those creative books. We've talked about quitting blogging. So some of the questions here are when to quit writing that book. So you've really talked about that. Although those of you were already writing those, we hear from indies who are not just indies, people who've been writing the same book for more than a decade, or people who've just been working on the same book. Maybe one could write something else, or can we get blocked by that old idea?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the main thing to say about these questions is there is no right answer. It's just going to resonate with you if you feel, actually maybe it's time to let that go. And I mean, there are two, especially at the beginning, you can keep working away at something that you would be better off doing something maybe a little bit less ambitious, getting it through, particularly if you are keen to be a successful indie author and to publish regularly. The whole experience of putting a book out, actually getting through the publishing thing, so if it's something that's has taken years and is going to take years, like my first book, maybe it might be do something easier first and do one or two easier projects and then come back to the great magnus opus, rather than feeling that has to be your first time out. So
yeah. So some of the other possibilities around quitting when to quit a series. So if your read through is dropping and dropping and dropping over time, and just, you know, maybe you've put loads of marketing money in it and it's just not taking off, should you write something new? Also, even quitting an entire genre. I mean, I've recently interviewed Dan Padavona, who's a great example. He just wasn't making the money he wanted for the amount of books that he was writing, and he switched genres from horror into thriller, and just found that immediately things started to take off. And I think this is something that I'm actually considering this around genres, is that I have some ideas that don't fit into my normal genres, and it may be that I might find it easier to write some of these ideas in other genres than the ones that I've been writing for sort of, you know, over a decade now. So that's interesting too.
Very interesting. And I think it's easy enough to know you should quit if money is falling. But
Mm,
actually, if money is still fine and you're selling reasonably well, but you know that creatively you're in a rut and you're
mm,
bored, or worse, you can really have quite negative feelings where you turn your writing into the worst sort of day job and you have to whip yourself in, and all of that. That too is time to quit. I think. I think if you're not balancing both the commercial and the creative, then that is a sign that something needs to change for sure. Or maybe not all out quitting the full thing, the full series or the full genre, but something needs to go. And so, yeah, it's
mm.
not just about commercial reasons, which can make it easier to make that judgment.
Yeah. And then a couple more in the sort of writing bit is when to quit an author name. This is like a big one, and especially, like, I almost feel, for me, both my author names are my actual name, which means emotionally, like J.F.Penn for my fiction, I have written all over the shop, and I am really thinking not to quit J.F.Penn, but maybe a bit like books and travel, park it and write something, a new genre under another name, to kind of almost start again, or do something in secret, or, you know, this is a problem when we do everything in public like we do. But you have, I mean, Orna Ross is not your actual name. It is a pen name for the first instance, but you also did add an initial for your nonfiction, didn't you? So what are your thoughts on quitting author names?
Yeah, it's that thing of freshening it up, isn't it? And like you say, it's the beginner's mind. You give yourself
Mm,
permission in a way that if there's a whole load of baggage attached to the name, both your own internal emotional baggage and then what readers expect, that just by changing your name you can really lighten your load. So I think there are definitely times to think about doing that. And when I was a journalist, I had about 6 names. Um,
That's funny because Dean Wesley Smith and Christine Catherine Rush talk about this. Like, between them, they have like 50 names or something that
Yeah,
they've written under. Traditional publishing does this all the time, right?
all the time, all the time. You meet people and you realize, they're writing, steamy erotica under one name and domestic tips under another, and because we are all many things, we contain multitudes. So yeah, there is absolutely no problem with that and parking things for a while. But also, if you feel, I think one of the biggest reasons here to let go is if something is completed, then
Hmm.
let it go completely. We do tend to keep a door open, and sometimes that makes sense. And again, there is no right answer here, no right way to do things, but it is worth saying that sometimes keeping a door open, creative energy can leak out that door,
Mm.
and doing the hard thing of quitting while you're ahead is a really great thing to do. You see it all the time with TV shows and other creative projects that it just goes from bad to worse, and people are so attached and they just can't let go. So it's definitely worth asking yourself these questions at the end of the year as we're beginning to look at another year.
Mm.
A publishing model is the other thing,
Mm.
the new business model and publishing model. So, if you've been KU from the start, is it time to go wide with some books, or, vice versa? If you're always wide, is there something that should go into KU? We would say that it is definitely time for people to think about quitting some things in order to put them onto your own website. So, for example, I'm quitting Patreon at the moment, taking my reader members over onto my website because I think I can. Well, one reason is because Patreon doesn't allow you to put things up and put up the amount that it costs. And I initially went in at a very low level, and
Yeah.
it's years
Me
ago.
too. Me too.
Yeah, and it's years ago, and you can't make that change. And also, I
Mm.
just feel I'd be able to serve the something about the communication being more direct, I think will suit my readers. I'm not going to move my author patrons. So yeah, that's another example of just thinking about different ways of doing things. Because of course, letting one thing go means taking on something else, or not necessarily taking in a new thing, but it does mean you're going to do something differently. So yeah, you finish one chapter, you open another.
And just on that, so the direct sales model, software is another thing. You and I have been doing this long enough now. We've seen so many different software, and new software comes along all the time. And again, this is not shiny object syndrome. This is look at the software and does it actually suit what you need better than another type of software. So, for example, I moved from PayHip is wonderful if you just want to do some, direct ebook sales or whatever. But moving to Shopify for me was about being able to do print on demand, being able to do a lot, merchandise, a lot more functionality with a Shopify. Also, they're getting into crypto and NFTs and all of these things. So I've got this kind of future proofing. I've been using PayHip before that. I was, using various WordPress plugins and email software. Someone asked me the other day, I use ConvertKit, but it's the third service I've used. Hosting platforms, I think I've used 4 hosting platforms. So again, the service you use as part of your business model, you can move this stuff. And again, it takes a bit of energy to move from one system to another. But Patreon, I'm also thinking about how I can achieve what I want to achieve with that, or whether I have to find something else. So this is part of it too, isn't it? Like, again, quitting can be pivoting or moving and changing, or not just giving it up entirely.
Exactly. And advice too. Where are you getting your advice?
Mm.
Where's it coming from? Are you listening to the same people saying the same things for many, many years? There's so many new podcasts now, so many new. When's the last time you actually went out and looked to see, what is newest? Same with technology and tools. Things are really changing and changing very rapidly, but are you doing things the same old, just because that's the way you've always done it? There may well be a tool that would really lighten your load that you're not even thinking about. So yeah, I would say at least once a year, well worth doing an inventory of
Yeah.
what you're using, and just looking to see whether it's been upgraded.
Yeah, or even like just looking at your monthly subscriptions, because often we sign up for things, we go, oh, it's $5 a month, whatever. And then you realize that you haven't looked at this stuff, or you've done a yearly, this happened to me recently, a yearly subscription renewed for something that I didn't use anymore, but because it was on annual, I didn't notice it was there. It was a social media plugin thing for my website. And I was like, oh, that's really annoying. Then of course they wouldn't refund me. And I was like, well, I only do monthly. But that's another example. You just have to kind of look at things and move on. But let's talk about marketing as well, because you have quit something that kind of comes under marketing and or communication. What else have you quit?
Twitter. Goodbye. Also sad, really, really sad about this. Because again, I started my blog on Twitter at the same time, because they kind of fed into each other.
We met on Twitter, Orna.
We met on Twitter. I met so many great people on Twitter. Absolutely. And it's so much yeah, I think it is the best social network, because it's got the thinkers and the writers, in abundance there and all of that. But I just can't cope with
The
the
drama.
the Musk factor. And so, I mean, the alliance is still there, and so, but just me personally, it's sort of everything about the way he does business is the opposite to the way I do business, and I've just quit it. So quit it, deactivated the account. It gets a month, I think, and then it's gone for good. So
Yeah. And
yeah, I'm not going back.
Well, but this is an interesting question. So I'm the opposite side. I will go down with that ship. I, as much as there are some issues with that person, I also am a shareholder in some of his companies, and I admire other sides of things. So
Yeah.
I'm all in on Twitter. It's my really my only network. Like everything else is peripheral and not important to me, but I'm in Twitter every day, and especially the AI Twitter, crypto Twitter. Like I'm in a lot of communities that aren't really elsewhere, so I get a lot out of it, and so I'm staying. But I did consider what would happen if it implodes or if it's blocked on Apple devices, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think I would go anywhere else. I think if it came down to it, it would be a case of quitting and not replacing it. And I've seen a lot of people go to Mastodon, go to Hive, go to other networks. Do we need to replace things? I guess that's the bigger question. If you quit something, do you have to replace it?
Well, I'm not.
Mm.
Everybody says, "Oh, are you going to Mastodon? Are you going?" No, I'm not. I'm actually. One of the things about letting it go, it was partly that, what I've already said. It was also about, again, time and focus. So again, I loved spending time there, and for lots of different reasons. But again, it's about letting go of something you like, letting go of something that you enjoy. But if you're just going to replace it and do the same thing somewhere else, then unless you've got a really good set of reasons for doing that, and I can't find good reasons for me to go to Mastodon, for example. I don't like it anyway. It doesn't feel right. Twitter felt right the moment I kind of landed there. It always felt right, and I used to use it more for reading than for actually
Me too.
tweeting. But all the information is available in lots of different ways. There are 1,000 ways to get your information, and you have to be really, really careful. So yeah, I'm not sorry. It's gone, and I'm not replacing it.
Yeah, but I think the overall message for people listening is if you quit something, that doesn't mean you just have to jump into replacing it exactly the same thing. It's more like just take advantage of having that open space to, like you wanted to quit some things to make more room for fiction. Well, this is something else that, gives you more space. But let's talk about some other forms of marketing. So I could say that my books and travel podcast essentially is marketing. I will launch my pilgrimage book in February 2023. And I'll do a special episode, that kind of thing. But it was marketing for books I never wrote. And there is a danger of building up a marketing engine for some when you don't have a product, which I know a lot of people make that mistake. But let's talk about also quitting advertising, spending money on a series or a book that does not work. So let's say you've changed the covers, you've rewritten the blurb, you've changed the metadata, and you still are not managing to make money with those books. What should you quit in that situation?
Well, move on to another book is an option. And again, there is no definite right answer. It might be time to stop doing a particular form of promotion and change into something quite different to get more creative about your promotion, might be one option. Or it might just be a matter of stopping, just giving it up and moving on to market another book or another series. I think also part of quitting can be testing something new. So you might feel, okay, I'll give that up and I'll go over here and I'll do this. But I think that, the more I go on in this business, the more I realize that testing is the way to go, and testing things on the small scale before you kind of run off and do things on the big scale. And one of the things that I liked very much in the Duke book was this idea of kill criteria. So you set a date and a state were the two kind of components of a kill criteria. So if I'm not in such and such a state, in other words, if I haven't achieved a certain thing by such and such a date, then I will quit on that date. And of course, this is, sometimes it is about keeping going. And sometimes it won't let you go. And, you want to quit and you can't. But I think this idea, I really like this killer criteria idea, and the idea of the value of it. What is its projected value? If you are, whatever you're doing in marketing, I think, though, this is particularly relevant for, what is the projected outcome of the marketing that you're doing? We can get very confused with marketing because marketing really is all that base stuff. Ads and other promotional things are different. And so in terms of looking at promotions, what is the expected value that you want on the far side? It can be too easy to just say, oh, well, I sold more books and more people know about me and so on. It's about that return on investment. And it's not just financial. It can also be about well-being. It can be about your health. It can be about your happiness. It can be all sorts of things. But doing a bit of advanced planning and thinking around it and that idea of kill criteria. So if I don't reach such and such a state by such and such a date, I quit that. And I maybe think about something else.
Yeah, and I do think this energy, I mean, we talk a lot about energy, and the feeling of, I'm really glad I just did that, it will tell you whether or not that's a good idea. And that book really gives you permission, right? Sometimes we need to be given permission. That's why we wanted to do this episode, because we know some of you listening need permission to quit some of these things, because actually it's not true. Just because you continue doing something for month in, month out, year in, year out, doesn't mean it will be a success. Unfortunately, that's actually the truth, right?
Absolutely. And you do need resilience in this business. You need it to kind of absorb when it isn't successful the first time. And there is such a thing as, if at first you don't succeed, try again. There is such a thing as third time lucky. All of these things do happen, and we're not for a second saying that they don't, and we're not for a second saying, if you haven't had success, give it up and go away necessarily. But we are saying, if you feel you should quit something, you have permission. Give yourself that permission, and you can always come back to something in a different way if in time you find that it doesn't work out. But we get so much advice about, write more books, for example, when there is no marketing structure in place. Often, just writing another book is not actually a strategy that is likely to deliver. And again, she talks in the book about the monkey and the pedestal or something like that. And how
that bit confused me.
Oh yeah, I thought that was really good. So, how you can spend a lot of time building a pedestal for something that, I guess, the books and travel will be an example of that.
Yeah.
So you spend a lot of time on the architecture, putting it all together and so on, without having tested,
there was no product.
Yeah. Does the monkey do the trick? And so, test the monkey bit first before you put all the effort into the other part. And if it doesn't work, quit that and find, is there another way to get at the same thing that might deliver more value in a while?
But that comes back to what you said near the beginning, which was about is it procrastination? Is it because it's easier? It is easier for me to build another podcast and a website because I know exactly how to do that. It's easier for me to record interviews than it is for me to sit down and write travel books in a genre or memoir, which is really hard, turns out. And I resisted, it was easier to resist doing that. So yeah, I guess, like you said, we're not saying you have to quit, but it's an option for you. But let's talk in the last few minutes, talk about some of the bigger questions, because of course, quitting your job to go full-time as an author entrepreneur, or vice versa, quitting being an author full-time to go back to a job. And I wanted to bring up the latter because I know quite a few authors who are struggling financially and felt guilty about going back to a job. And I'm like, don't feel guilty. Like, everyone has to feed their family and pay the bills and whatever. You're allowed to quit whatever, but it's the self-definition thing, right? You're like, I'm a full-time author, but then I need to go, as Michael Brent Collins shared on my show, he went to deliver pizzas because he couldn't pay the bills. And so I quit my job back in 2011, and it was, I had 5 years of building up a business on the side, and my quit criteria was, if I can't make this work within 6 months, I will go back and get a job. And I still feel that way. Like, if this business went completely south, I would go back and get a job. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So what are your thoughts on the career thing of either direction?
Yeah, I think I suppose you've spoken very eloquently there about the quitting to go to get a job, to supplement, or to quit completely and say, you know what, I haven't, I've been defining myself as a writer, but
Mm,
why? I can be all sorts of other things. It's one short life, you don't have to be a writer. You don't have to be a publishing writer. You can quit in that way. But the other part is very often seeing authors of talent who are doing well, who hold on to the day job far too long,
mm.
and don't do that brave thing of quitting and throwing yourself out there in a way to. So I wouldn't advise anyone to do that straight up. I wouldn't advise anyone to do that until they are seeing return on investment, until they are fully publishing, have mastered at least 6 of the 7 stages, which is, the whole production thing and the whole marketing and promotion thing, and you're making good sales, but time is becoming a real problem for you, and you're just not able to, and you have a good reason to think that you could actually make a lot more money if you take the leap. Then take that leap. Do quit the
Yeah.
day job. I love to see people quitting the day job. I remember encouraging you to leave, to leave the day job and stay with what you were doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
you also helped me not go back to my day job when it
yeah,
in the
that's
early
the one. Yeah.
difficult
Yeah.
difficult phase, and you were like, "No,
Mm,
you will do better."
mm.
Ironically, you will do better if you just keep going. But
Yes.
that was true in my circumstance. I did, and like again, just before we finish, even bigger things that both you and I have done, which I feel are also about energy, is we've changed cities. And both of us have changed cities in the last few years. So I moved from London to Bath, and you moved to the coast, a coastal town from London. And also, we've both moved countries. So I moved from the UK to New Zealand, and then Australia, and then back to the UK. And you moved from Ireland to the UK. And for both of us, I'll just speak for myself. It enabled me moving back to the UK from down under, liberated me from a whole load of stuff, and enabled me to be a writer. But equally, I had to leave the UK to almost become an indie author, because it's such a staid environment, or it used to be back in the day, that I almost had to leave to escape. So again, quitting can be an even bigger thing. So what energy did you moving, what did that give you?
Oh no, absolutely. I moved 3 times, to the UK and back again, UK back again, and then for the final time back in 2008. And at that time, it was absolutely essential to me to leave, just for creative sort of, four all 4 in the family came across to London for creative reasons, to
Mm.
freshen things up, to give ourselves opportunities that we wouldn't have had in Ireland, and so on. And the recent move down to St Leonard's was very much about moving into a more creative environment. London is super creative, obviously, and super interesting as a city, but I personally am more nurtured by things like the sea and the woods and all of that. London's still on my doorstep, and I commute there all the time. But to actually live, this has been a great creative boost for me, and I think that's the end of my moving. But
Who knows?
if I felt my creative juices needed it again, and it's suited, obviously, spouse and family and everything, I wouldn't rule it out. I don't think so at this stage, but you never know. The point being, if you're thinking of quitting a country, a relationship, or any of those big things, because you know in your heart and soul that creatively you need it, then quit. Do quit. Leave
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, do whatever it is. So I hope we've given you lots of examples, from tiny, tiny things to really, really big things, that we've both quit over the years, but moved into new things. So that's the way to frame it, for people listening. This is about new opportunities, refreshment, as you've said several times, and the wonderful things that can happen when you make space for it. So we're out of time, but we will be back in December. We're going to record just before the new year, talking about how can indie authors prepare for the opportunities coming in 2023. Because once you've made some space, we're going to fill it with some ideas of things. So anything that you want to say before we go? What's happening with ALLi if people want to catch up there?
Yes, just it's the end of the year. We're planning next year. We're planning some of our, we're kind of going on the road a bit more next year. Yes. So if you are, particularly if you're in New Hampshire, we're looking for somebody to run an event there. And we are, we're going to be out and about. So if you've got anything exciting happening in your area and you'd like ALLi to be part of it, then drop us a line at info@allianceindependentauthors.org because we haven't got the travel schedule quite worked out yet. So we'd like to hear from you about that. And watch out for your member magazine members. It should be landing in your inboxes on Wednesday. That's tomorrow. Yes.
Fantastic. Right. Well, it just remains to say happy writing.
And happy publishing. Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye.